Doing exit interviews next week, so the audit is almost complete, so next report will be an audited report. Looking at the general fund line, restricted funds are 1.3 million, committed 2.4. Assigned funds are $519,857. Unassigned fund balance is 4.8 million. Total fund balance is 9.2 million, with cash at 8.2 million. And cash, also looking at cash from last year, it's up 2.8 million from last October, so things are looking pretty good, I guess. Looking at some other funds in the highway department, committed funds are at 2.6 million. Schools, 5.9 million. The EMS has unassigned fund balance of $237,194. Is there any questions?
Questions? Mr. Bob?
I should know this, but tell me the difference between committed and assigned funds again.
Well, that's a good question. I sort of look, and I'm still bad to call everything restricted, and it means the same thing to me. I'm not just, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure. I know a committed is more like I think a grant, where it's committed for that grant. But I will get you an answer to that question. Because I'm real bad, and I get in trouble with Lester all the time calling everything a restricted fund.
It really is.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, it is, but
Does that satisfy you, Mr. Bob?
Yes.
That wasn't much of an answer, but
no, it was terrible. I'll be honest, it was a terrible answer, but that's all I got.
Ms. Teresa? Ms. Teresa?
Have we received sales tax dollars?
We have some. We received sales tax dollars every month.
And what did we receive this last month?
This last month?
Which would have been through when?
Well, we're always a month, so for October, we're just collecting September's.
Yeah.
For September, total sales tax was 3.1 million. That's 13% up from last year.
Does it grow that much every year, Robbie? Or,
It has been growing lately. I mean, we've been up in sales tax. In fact, we increased our budget in the revenue for sales tax this year quite a bit. So sales tax it's $3 million. It's up $3 million for this year from last year in the month of September. Now, I will say that the general fund doesn't get a huge portion of the sales tax. The cities that it's collected in gets most of the sales tax, and the school departments get a majority of that as compared to
But
the
that's
schools.
the amount of sales tax, period?
Yes.
Before it got divvied out, correct?
Yes.
Of that, how much of it was generated by the city of Oak Ridge?
$2,072,170.
so way over half of it.
A third, two-thirds.
Yeah. That's way over half.
And the city of Clinton was 640,000, so, yes.
Miss Julie, we're very informal here.
That's even more relaxed than fire commission. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Robbie? Let's look at the consent agenda then, if you would. Anybody got a problem with any of the consent? Everybody looked over the consent agenda? Got a motion? Motion is second, all
I
in
have a
favor?
question.
Oh,
About item number 7, Kim, it's regarding HR.
It's HR for the school department.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. HR for the school department. The detailed justification says to reflect budget for human resources as originally requested from HR department.
What happened is,
Sorry.
what happened, you're gonna see some of those, as you know, we had a budget that was out, and then we did another budget, and the budget that got approved was the first budget, so there's some things in there that we changed between our first budget in April and the budget we actually passed in June, so that's what those are for. Does that make sense?
It'll have to, I suppose.
any other question, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, looking at number 3 on the agenda, AC Schools. I have Jim Woodward on there, but his last day was yesterday, so it's now Julie Minton. Transfers and appropriations. Looking for approval, 8 through 12. I'd like to pull 13 out and do it individually, but 8 through 12 as a group. Or
8 through
individual.
12. Got a motion that we approve 8 through 12 as a group.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion?
Question?
Question, yes.
The SROs, I guess, according to this, we're able to move them to full-time, is that correct? In the,
What it is, we're looking at, yes, hiring more of them full-time.
We need a mic, Cody.
Yeah.
Remember, we have to use our mics.
Yes, we're looking at, we got that grant to hire more SROs. That was through that safety grant. So, we've hired 2.
Two, so, well, typically we hire 2, and there's 2 that are typical.
Yes, yes. So as we get out through the year, a lot of our SROs was only part-time at one school and part-time at another school. So now what we hope with this grant, we will have full-time SROs once we get them at all schools.
are these school employees or the sheriff's?
No, they're employees of the sheriff's department.
Okay.
And if I can, I'd like to introduce Julie Minton. She is our new CFO. She took over as of November the 1st. Jim Woodward is sailing off into the sunset. I said on his first day, yesterday was his last day, so I said, it's good that he's reigning today. He's probably bored, I'm hoping, so anyway. But Julie she comes with a wealth of knowledge. She's been with us for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And she's been the assistant in that office for 10 years, so we've moved her right on in there, and she'll do a great job for us. So,
Well, we welcome you, Miss Julie. Good luck to you. Any other questions for Dr. Parrott? All in favor of 8 through 12? Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 13, Rodney.
Okay, number 13
Robbie.
is a budget amendment. If y'all remember last year during budget season, we had a discussion about funding the one-to-one project. And we were thinking about using unassigned fund balance, but it wasn't supported by our audit team. So the schools have come up with a good plan where we can take money from the debt service, reducing their contributions by $400,000. Fund 152, actually both of the debt service funds are healthy, and reducing our revenue, $400,000 will not cause a shortage. We'll still be able to meet all of our debt requirements for the year, so.
Got a motion, need a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Yes. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robbie, just teach me something here. Why was it that the audit team didn't support our original idea for this?
So unassigned fund balance from general fund is coming from the 101 fund, from rollover money, budget, revenue money, and unassigned. 2 funds that have tax levies cannot transfer to each other.
Oh,
That's what they were saying anyway.
okay. All right.
And the reason, when we first started talking about this, we were looking at we paid the county part of that SRO, but we couldn't do that because if we don't show that we pay our 50% of the SROs, then we don't receive this $455,000 grant. So that's what we done. So what this initially does, it drops that payment by $400,000. It doesn't take anything out of your all fund balance. It doesn't drop our fund balance. It just drops that fund balance in that one from about 1.2 down to, at the end, we'll still have about $800,000 in that. And that's the final payment. That makes it over and done with. We never have to bring it up
That was
again.
gonna be my next question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, that's one-on-one or the Chromebooks, that'll settle the
Yep,
commission and the
yes.
school board
Yep,
forever?
that settles it forever.
Forever.
You'll never hear it out of my mouth again.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and I would like to say 13A goes with this also. It's showing the decrease in contributions from 152, 400,000, and a decrease in the budget restricted for debt service. So it's, yes, please.
That wasn't part of your original motion, 13A? All right, I got a motion to approve 13A. Second. Got a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next up is a budget, is appropriation from the Sheriff's Department. They're reducing restricted.
Got a motion to approve, need a second. Got a motion and a second, discussion.
Got a question. Sorry, Tyler.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is to include digital radios, tasers, bulletproof vests.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's all getting them? Are these people that are working in the jails? Are they working
Just court security personnel,
court security only? Okay.
yes.
Yeah, they are.
Any more discussion?
Thank you, I'm sorry.
welcome.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tyler.
Okay, next up is appropriations from the Library Board. Susan Maselli, 15 through 18, looking for approval as a group or individual.
Got a
Second.
motion that we'll do it as a group. Second. Discussion. 15 through 18.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next up is the Highway Department with Gary Long. I made a change on this appropriation and added $15,000 more to it because he had a transmission go out on a backhoe and he had needed emergency funding, so it's for $65,000 now.
He's just
Got a
assuming I have
motion?
questions.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion for Mr. Long.
Sure. Yeah,
I bet you can though, can't you?
Guarantee it. Yes,
yeah, so what happened with this?
the backhoe, the transmission went out. We actually put some brakes and stuff on it and run it about 6 hours. It's either a transmission or an indicator on the transmission pressure. It's not getting enough pressure to forward and backwards.
Yeah, we understand all that.
Okay,
So it was
I'm
just
sorry.
straight maintenance, it wasn't due to an accident
No,
where we
that's
could get
correct.
an
No, it
insurance
is not
claim?
an accident or lack of maintenance. It's actually wear and tear with the 9,800 hours on it, I believe, but
That's
Any
all
more
I
discussion or questions for Mr. Long?
need. No.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
thank y'all.
The next item on the budget agenda is an appropriation from tourism, increasing their other contracted services $25,000 and decreasing the restricted fund balance. They're transferring funds from restricted tourism to complete the ramp construction at Anderson County Park.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. How close is the ramp to being finished?
I think this will do it right here.
Okay,
This,
okay.
You knew that question was coming, didn't you?
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
all right, next up is animal control with Brian Porter. It's an appropriation to increase their other contracted services, $2,500, and decreasing their restricted for public health and welfare, $2,500 to pay for their animal vet bills.
Got a motion?
Um,
Got a motion and a second? Discussion? Question?
Yeah, I just wondered, it's an increase for spay and neutering animal. Have you had just a big increase in the number of animals need?
Well, to be honest with you, we got a real good deal with Planned Parenthood out in Harriman. We were having issues getting our animals spayed in a timely manner because the vet clinic in Clinton that we dealt with could only fit them in between their regular, clientele. So I contacted Planned Parenthood in Harriman, and they just, fortunately for us, had a rescue group that had dropped off, and they fit us in. So every Thursday, I take 7 cats and 3 dogs and get them spayed. So I have a constant supply of animals that I can keep in PetSmart and get
Right.
out the door. And so I have to keep paying that bill, which is a very cheap bill compared to what it
Yeah.
was costing us. And we just got information today when I went to pick them up, because I take them every Thursday. They're giving us another 25% off because we have been real regular. We don't cancel on them. We always show up. We always pick our animals up. So it's a real good deal for us.
So this was being paid out of one account and then now you're paying it out of a different account with a better?
Well, it's the adoption fees that I get in, and the surrender fees and the reclaim fees go into a revenue account, and then I just move them to the expenditure account to pay my bills.
Any other questions? You think, Mr. Bob?
Yes.
Any other questions?
I do have a quick question. How many how many cats are you passing through PetSmart?
A lot.
Good.
Yeah, I'd have to pull the numbers to give you an exact figure, but we move them on a pretty regular basis. My euthanasias went way down on the cats, our
Good.
adoptions are way up on the cats.
Good.
Um,
It's a very clean facility. That's
Well,
why I
thank
was
you.
asking. I've
Thank you.
stopped by and gone during hours, and then during their closed time, and it's just,
Well, that's all my volunteers.
That's
They're the
cool.
ones that do that for us and take care of it, so.
it's very, very clean.
Yeah,
though.
it's
I
very
like that.
fortunate for us that we have people that care enough to do that for the animals and the county.
Yeah.
Very visible over there.
I can't do it because I'll take them all home.
Well, you can do it anytime you want.
No, my my vet said no. I want to take them all.
Done? Do-
Yeah, I'm done. I'm good.
Mr. Chuck?
Since you have extended hours now, basically open every day, do you see more increase in volunteers helping the area?
We do. We see a better increase in the adoptions, more people coming in at, at hours now that we are open, that they can come in. We do have an increase in some of the volunteerism right now. I really, until our facility changes, that number's kind of, it's kind of governed by the situation we're in. You can only put so many volunteers in a room so big. They're just walking over each other. But, so we try to stagger them around. The BART kids still participate with us. They come down on Saturdays now. And, they've been with us since the beginning. So they come down and bring a certain amount of students and work with the dogs and cats. And through the week, we have, I know there's 2 new ladies that have been coming in this past week that are starting to volunteer and come in. But yeah, we've seen an increase in everything since those hours have
Have you
opened.
put on your website how you go about volunteering and?
We do.
And things that you need and stuff like that?
Yeah, they have to fill out an
'Cause
application.
I've had a lot of people ask me what I need to volunteer. And
All they need to do is call us, come by, we'll give them an application, fill it out, just kind of discuss some parameters they need to stay in, what we will and will not allow, and then they're in the game.
Okay.
All right, good. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item number 10 is from the mayor. It's appropriation increasing revenue in lieu of taxes DOE $32,865.14 and increasing restricted for social, cultural, and recreational services $32,000.
Got a motion to approve?
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Questions?
Yeah.
All in,
I have a question.
yes, okay.
Yeah, do we have to go back to DOE in terms of projects that we want to use this money for, or as long as it's in general category is?
It was money that was from a previous year, wasn't it, Mayor, that we
Yes,
received?
the way, the agreement that we have had in the past is $492,000. That fixed amount goes to the schools. And so sometimes in the years when we only get it staggered through the year, we make sure the schools are funded because theirs is a committed portion. Everything else is for general purpose. This amount, what happened here is, in 2015, in 2014, there was a property tax increase, and Roane County had a tax increase. I think the number changed for the city of Oak Ridge as well. And so when we all submitted our request in the 2015 year, DOE had not budgeted the full amount in anticipation of those numbers changing. And so we were shorted as jurisdictions. So Roane County was shorted, the city of Oak Ridge, and the county. Over time, they were able to come up with a little extra money one year, and then this makes us whole for 2015. They were able to make us whole for what they shorted us in that 2015 year.
Okay, thank you.
Lou?
Yeah.
Mr. Chuck?
It's not totally final yet, but we are, I'm trying to work with the city of Clinton to get South Clinton Elementary School, but we have got a tentative public meeting set up because we want the public involved to tell us what they want to do and what type of improvements they would like to see done to that park there. But it's set up for December the 3rd. That's a Tuesday night from 6:30 to 7:30. So if anyone wants to come, they're more than welcome to, but we definitely want the public involvement in it.
Any other discussion, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. The next two budget amendments are from the county commission, from Annette Pruitt. One looking for approval as a group or individually.
Move for approval as a group.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Okay.
County Commission.
And the last budget amendment is from the finance department. It's, we're increasing other general administration, other charges, $17,742.11, and decreasing unassigned fund balance. It's funding needed for our deductible billing with Tennessee Risk Management for lawsuits that involve Anderson County. And I've attached the bill, the invoice. And we have to pay this, we get this every year, so we don't.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion? Need a second?
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Discussion?
Have we already exceeded the amount we have budgeted every year?
We don't budget for this, actually, for this invoice right here, every year. We ask for this every year out of unassigned.
Okay, I thought we had so much money for lawsuits or something.
And that's like, I mean, I know the property assessor does, and Jay has stuff like that, but not for our deductible billing for risk management.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to the sections part of the agenda. The first thing I want to talk about is we received a letter from the comptroller about our last year's budget, and just to kind of some highlights, that the letter acknowledges receipt of a certified copy of our fiscal year budget 2020. They're saying they've reviewed the budget and have determined that projected revenues and other available funds are sufficient to meet anticipated expenditures. This letter constitutes approval by this office for the county's fiscal year 2020 budget as adopted by County Commission. One, they did have a consideration concerning the budget from the EMS Medical Services Fund. And it says the Office of State and Local Finance has determined that the county's budget meets basic statutory requirements, but we have detected a challenge outlined below that could possibly lead to financial problems in the future. According to the budget submitted by the county, the EMS Medical Services Fund is projected to end fiscal year 2020 with an amount of cash that is less than 1 month's average monthly spending. This fund appears to have sufficient cash during fiscal year 2020 to remain balanced. However, to ensure this continues, the county's finance staff should provide the following information to the commission if it does not already do so. And that's updated cash flow analysis for the fund and a budget to actual report by fund, including both revenue collections and expenditures. And I've provided both of those behind this letter. And basically, this report just shows us that EMS is, I mean, we've completed the 4th month of October, which is a third of our budget, and they've spent 34% of their budget, and, well, actually, they've spent 35.5% of their budget, and they've collected 34% of their revenue, so they're right on, I mean, where they should be, in my opinion.
Well, I want to ask you something, if I may.
Yes.
Since you are the interim budget director, is the commission, are we way behind on supplying the EMS their needs? Are we?
Well, I think their budget had a deficit budget this year. I mean, you know, when you forgave the debt, and they had a unassigned fund balance of $450,000, but their budget was 200 and something thousand, a deficit budget this year, so we didn't fund their complete budget, and I think that's more or less what they're looking at. If that answers your question.
Questions for that letter, that discussion?
And I'll bring this each month, I'll provide, we used to do this anyway and it also says that we can provide this for each fund. If you all want, I can do this for every fund, but that would be a lot of paperwork, but I'm willing to do that.
Discussion?
It sounds like we just need to monitor this very carefully.
Right. And Nathan is aware of that and also monitors it, his budget. I think he's used to having to budget really tight.
Question? Do we need to accept?
No, that's just information. It said, the letter said that please provide a copy of this letter to all members of county commission and present it at the next meeting of county commission. So this
Okay.
is me doing so.
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So next up, we have Anderson County Compensation Plan with Kim Jeffers Whitaker. And I'm going to let her present this plan.
Well, Kim Jeffers Whitaker, come on down.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, it's the same thing.
Okay. I gave them a copy.
Oh, well, thank you, Robbie.
This is a color copy.
Yes, I printed in color because I'm, that person that color coordinates, and I'm going to draw your attention to what's in red here in a bit.
Yeah.
We can't afford a finance department can't afford a color printer.
It's a color copier now, remember? Catherine helped with that.
Go ahead, ma'am.
All right. So the first section on here is where Nathan has presented this to you all. This is the compensation or the pay scale that Nathan has been utilizing. Okay. Do you want to talk about it or you want me to?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay. The first one, you can see the first section that's in pink. The first one is our part-time, numbers 2 through 6. And number 20, I believe, on the backside. All of those have red marks underneath. It has red writing. And that says that these benefit scale, all of those were taken directly from the Anderson County Government Compensation Plan. So this is what's already in place. It's just taken from our compensation plan and laid over for the EMS that pertains to his staffing. The remaining, you can see that I've color-coded, again, in the yellow. These are going to go by hours. The yellow's 9, the blue is 12, purple is 14, and then that is supposed to be a green is 24. So it goes into how many hours that they work, okay? And then it breaks down their scales. Now, I want to say that nothing in here will cause an increase or a decrease to anyone's salary. This is what's already being facilitated. It's simply putting it in the same format that the sheriff's office uses. Okay?
Easy to understand, yes?
I'm trying. And then the sections that are highlighted shows you the ranges of pay that he currently has and those that are being paid. You want to add anything?
No, I think, she did well on that. It really was taking the same format the sheriff's department has and using it for ours. So it's not identical to the sheriff's department, but it's the same format. Her and I's discussion really for the public safety sector, having the different levels does make a bit more sense of knowing where they may move to the next level. It does help for our industry to have it set up that way. And when she meant by the hours, that's the shift hour that they work. So a 9-hour shift or a 12-hour shift or 14. Beside it, there's a little parentheses that tells you the annual hours that shift works. So it kind of gives it a breakdown. Easy for my staff to also be able to say or to see where they're at and where they would, if they change shifts, where they would be at.
Questions for Nathan? Kim?
Just a question about the number of steps. Is that 20 steps? That seems kind of high, or a large number of steps according to most salary schedules I've seen. Usually it's around 15 and you top out. Is that it? Am I right on that, or am I not right?
For us, so
No, I mean I'm talking in general, yeah.
So we, as long as I've been here, we used to have a 7-step plan, we used to have a 10-step plan, and then in 2008, the county went to a 20-step plan. At that time, when I became director, Kathy Best, the HR director at that point, really encouraged me to move to the 20-step plan to fall in line with the rest of the county. So we did that. So that's why we moved to the 20-step plan, and we've been there ever since.
So pretty much all of our departments are on 20 steps, is that?
So the sheriff's office is on the 20-step as well, and so is Nathan's. What we're going to be looking at today is changing the rest of the county to a minimum, midpoint, and max, but currently, we're on a 20-step, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Teresa?
Nathan, with like number 8 is an AEMT 9-hour shift. The figure down on the third line, the 1525, that's what it amounts to per hour?
Yes.
Then you have an AEMT 12-hour shift. That one's at 1525 for a 9-hour shift. Number 10, which is AEMT 12-hour shift, it's $14.80.
Correct.
Number 15 is AEMT 24-hour shift, $11.81. Why would it go down the more hours you work?
So the more hours they work, of course, the total hours on the annual. So the 24-hour shift actually makes about 3,000 or 4,000 more on the annual, but the hourly, they'll make less. So it's really, we've had the 24-hour shifts historically for some time, but when we look to have the day trucks, to work day truck hours, you couldn't pay them at that rate. The pay on the annual would be so low, nobody would work it. So we compensated it because they actually have a higher, what's called a unit hour utilization. So the day trucks have a higher unit hour utilization compared to a 24-hour truck. So it means basically the number of hours they work, they do more work. So it's kind of saying, okay, you're busier during your 12-hour shift than someone is during a 24-hour shift. So you're going to be compensated more because you're doing more work, if that makes sense. On the hour, on the annual, they're compensated less.
Any other questions? Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've asked that same question before because it's kind of
Makes sense.
hard to justify that, but he's explained it before, and I understand what he's trying to do, but I have the same concerns on it that Commissioner Scott does. My question, though, I guess, is to Kim. Has this been before the HR committee so far?
This section for EMS has not, because the only person that's on the HR advisory committee that really has oversight of EMS would be the mayor. Did you share this with the mayor? Have you shared this with the mayor?
And she has a copy, and I didn't send her this exact copy today. But I guess this was brought because last budget committee, you all asked us to bring it back.
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing that, but,
It has not.
okay, thank you.
So what do we do with it today?
So it's requesting either approval or guidance from the budget committee on the attached, this is the pay scale, and noting that in no way does this increase or decrease what's currently being facilitated.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I appreciate Nathan doing what we asked him to do, and I'm glad that he did it. So now I've got it in writing, but I would certainly like the opinion of the HR committee on this, as well as Kim's, which I'm assuming you were planning on taking yours to the HR committee anyway, according to the email. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion that this be sent to the HR committee for review, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor of sending it back to HR?
We'll send it to HR.
Yes.
Never been there.
To send it to HR, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. HR committee will receive this.
Okay.
Thank you, Nathan.
Next sessions are on page 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they look like this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same.
It's the same thing, just one's probably in color. So this is compensation, the coordination of our compensations and the recommendations. If you have a colored sheet, you'll see on there that what we do have on our compensation plan for EMS is still listed on this in red. They have not been pulled off until you all give that permission, but currently they're on there. You're going to see they're very limited and probably not applicable right now, but they are still there. if you've got a black and white, I think it's just a little bit faded, is where you'll see the red. What this relays, though, is that the sheriff's office has been removed, as well as the water authority, the county health department, and anything that's governed by the 81 law. So after updating that and applying the minimum, midpoint, and maximum that was presented and then requested from the HR Advisory Committee, bringing it back to this committee for review and maybe approval. So what this does is this removes like the 20 steps, it applies it into here, and this one would not be anymore.
And you want this committee to do what?
Well, the goal would be to approve it. Now, whether you want to approve it right now, we may want to wait till next time to allow us the time to take this back to the HR Advisory.
What is the,
Second.
I got a motion, the second, to take it back to send it to HR committee. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. It'll go with the other piece of paper.
Okay. Page 5 and 6. If you have a colored portion, what you're going to see is in blue. What is in blue is the current narrative that was passed back in 2008 that goes along with the compensation plan. There are some section in there that refers to the steps that's going to have to be updated, and there's some other portions that I feel like that the elected officials probably would want some input on. So my request is to share this with you, but to also take this back to the HR Advisory Committee to allow the elected officials time to have some input on this.
This needs to be a separate motion? As a
Yes,
separate
please.
item? Motion to send to HR.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
And
Motion carries.
let me make a statement, Mr. Chairman. My intent is not to shoot down or shoot holes in any of these. I just want the expertise of Commissioner Yeager and the HR committee to lay their eyes on this and give us some good advice when it's brought back up.
Well said, well said.
Ditto.
Yeah, well said. Next,
That's it. That's all
you
I
already
have.
done? All right, thank you.
All right, well, next up, we have the Marlow Convenience Center. Mayor Frank has a discussion about that.
I don't have a specific spending request, and I'm not, I know you all don't want items on the agenda that aren't action, but I did want to make you aware that I may be coming, the fund balance of solid waste is not adequate to deal with some issues that we have at the Marlow Convenience Center. And so we've had some issues. We had a TDEC finding. If you go down there, the slope of that convenience center basically slopes to the creek. And Jeff has done everything he can to try to patch, put extra pans there. I think, going from memory, I think he said 9,000 pounds of concrete there to try to address it. And we just can't get it fixed. So what we're looking at, the concrete pad is aged anyway and does need some repair work. So we're looking at engineering, creating a tank, having that, put the runoff from the dumpsters will go into a sewer system where we can pump it out. But then also, we would like to tie in to Oliver Springs to the sewer system there, but I think they have a moratorium. So we're going to do some fine tuning on our proposal to improve that site and address the deficiencies. But I just wanted to make you aware that we may be coming and asking for permission maybe to do some financing, maybe an expenditure or something like that. The proposed cost for a complete overhaul, I think, is in the low 300,000s. But again, that is assuming that we can tie in to the sewer system. I don't think we can do that at this point in time, so I'm looking at maybe putting together a phased plan that has that as long-term, but while we're doing the repairs and corrections and upgrades, we go ahead and plan for that tie-in when we can get into the Oliver Springs system. So I just wanted to make this committee aware, because I know you're always balancing, what expenditures to make, and I want you to know that that is something that is on the horizon. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right. And the last thing is the senior center location and also.
Just stand right there.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
And at last month's meeting, we discussed, I know we were waiting to hear a proposal from Mayor Burton at the Operations Committee on that Monday. And then I also committed to you to do a pro-con sheet with all the data. I'm not prepared to present that yet. I don't have all of the information. I have electric information. I've been doing some different work and cost calculations. Catherine Ashmary in purchasing has been very generous in allowing Royden, who knows how to do Excel spreadsheets, and which I'm not very good at, so she's allowed him to help me build some of those sheets where we can plug in these cost analysis figures. I did meet with the city manager today. We did a walkthrough earlier with their architect to look at what some of the costs of improving that facility are. There was a roof leak, for instance, the day we were there. They've done some patching, but that is on the horizon. So they're going to get some cost estimates. Those numbers are not available yet, so I can't really come to you with anything until I have those numbers. And then also their council will need to say, what does the deal look like? So for instance, in the past, whether it was the Anderson County School System or currently Roane State, the agreement is a 50-50. So if there are maintenance issues, it would be large maintenance issues, so capital needs. That's a 50-50 shared agreement. So I think as Budget Committee, you really need to have that data, and I wouldn't want to push you into any kind of decision. I have my opinions on what is, I think, the better move for the county, but it needs to be backed up with the data that you have asked for. I do know, just kind of right off the bat, for instance, in terms of electric bill, you're looking at high water marks of $2,700, for some of the summer months at the Armory. High marks at the other facility are $1,200. So there's some things, some data like that I'm going to plug into your analysis that can also help you, not just with the cost of an asset, but the operation of the program. So I want to put something good together for you that you're going to feel good about.
Quick question. When you say the electric and the usage, are you basing it on what the history is?
Yes, ma'am. So I contacted CUB, and we got all of that information faxed over the last several years so we could get a good, pre-Roane State, during Roane State, because obviously they've got some usage, with equipment, but then they have some down hours too. So that's where Royden in purchasing has done a really good job of what's the cost per unit for a facility. So really, they're about the same in terms of, unit cost. But the differential is that the Armory is 15,000 square feet, and the other facility is 8,800 square feet, or I think bumping 8,900 square feet. So that's, when we start talking real money, that's where the differences are, so.
Okay.
We would appreciate as much, as a thorough report as you can give us.
Sure.
Because we want everybody to feel good about whatever decision we make. We've got to get this one right.
Absolutely, and just, I didn't want to overstep my bounds, but I did reach out to Representative Reagan and ask if the county did purchase a facility, would he be willing to sponsor legislation or a budget amendment for a grant? And he said, of course, just like county commission, there are no guarantees in what would be approved at the legislative level. But he said, I am free to share that if you all would like him to, if we do go down that path, that he was 100% committed to submitting a request through the state for some type of matching for the senior program.
Good. Questions for our mayor?
And I don't know if this is the appropriate venue, but, you know, the appraisal just came in, I mean, as I'm headed out the door to go to the tours, so I haven't got to analyze that. That is for your information. It's not a public document because obviously the sellers, if we do not purchase it, the sellers would expect any other purchaser to get that information on their own. I will be distributing that to you all, but I would like so that, and I don't know if the church will do this, there isn't any kind of rush on their end. We have no agreement with them. We're not in any kind of contractual obligation. But I would like you all to authorize me to reach out to them and ask if they would keep it off the market until December. And again, that's not a contractual, that's not a option, that's just a request that basically prevents anyone else from, that's what they did in their letter to us. They said, we won't mark, you know, we'll pull it off the listing until November 30th.
Is that fair to ask him to do that?
I mean, all they can do is say no.
Yeah.
So, but I think it would be, if we are interested, it would be good if they would say yes to that.
I think that's fair.
Question for the mayor. Mr. Meredith.
Do you need a motion to that, to take it to commission, or just
Yes.
bring it up at commission? Come out of here with,
Since, I think it would be good if it came from here and then it just worked its way up.
I move that we ask the mayor to extend that, or ask the seller to extend that to December 31st.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion, questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ask them if they will.
I will.
We'll send them a Christmas card.
And a fruitcake.
And a fruitcake. A Claxton fruitcake.
That's all I have on the agenda.
That's all I've got on my agenda. Let's go.
I will say next month, I did look back last year at December, and we start getting into budget stuff again. I know we feel like we just did that, but
Yeah, be prepared for some cuts.
we're going to approve the calendar and stuff next month.